Hello everyone, my name is Josh, and this is Whimsical and Interesting Musings, or WHIMs. And today, or this evening, I'm going to be doing a movie review for the 1992 festive classic that's kind of along the same lines as Die Hard, in the sense that people are often debating whether or not it's actually a Christmas movie, is the film Batman Returns. And this film was directed by Tim Burton, and it's probably one of my favourite of the classic Tim Burton Batman films, because to me, I just think it's absolutely perfect. It's the perfect kind of Christmas movie, in my opinion, because it has everything that I just really enjoy. A lot of people it's just that perfect thing to kick off Christmas. I mean, to me, a lot of people have a feel whenever it's to do with Christmas where I always say that whenever you hear um, singers like Michael Bublé, for instance, you know it's Christmas. Like whenever you hear, him sing, "It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas." That's when I know it's Christmas. That's when I know it's Christmas coming. To me, I also kind of get a little bit of a chill, like a little bit of a festive chill, whenever I hear the musical score of Danny Elfman, and whenever I hear, his Batman theme, or whenever I hear, the Christmassy themes in stuff like The Nightmare Before Christmas. I always kind of think to myself, oh, it's Christmas time coming around the corner. And it feels very weird when you're watching them the rest of the year round, because then you feel that urge to go, oh, I wish it was Christmas. I wish Christmas was around the corner, just so I could feel more festive, in a more festive mood. So this film, despite the fact that it's set during Christmas, it doesn't feel like when you first see it, it doesn't feel like a genuine, festive film, because it is quite dark. It's much darker than, even the Christopher Nolan Batman films, even though they do have their moments. It does have a much more darker feel to it. It has a much more darker tone. It feels much more gothic, and it feels much more as if the filmmaker Tim Burton really just wanted to let loose and say, well, okay, this is me doing my version of these characters. This is my version of Batman. This is my version of the Joker. And he really does have complete creative control in this film, and you really do get it from the very first scene. The opening isn't an opening of Batman fighting crime or getting ready to kick ass. It essentially opens with an origin story of the Penguin, and it's done pretty much in a very kind of ominous and very kind of weird, but yet also slightly quirky kind of way. It almost feels like an Addams Family scene, like a scene lifted right out of the Addams Family, where the penguin in a cage grabs the cat and just pulls it into the cage. And you hear the cat just moaning and, meowing and things like that, as the poor thing's being eaten alive. But yeah, and then the parents are just drinking martinis, like saying, oh God, this child again. Gives themselves a bit of Dutch courage. But yeah, it's one of those great openings that I just really love, and it really just gets me in the mood. And I do think it's one of my favourite Batman movies, because it is a very good story at the heart of it. Like, it does have a very interesting set piece with, particularly with the three villains. We have Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, played by the wonderful Danny DeVito, and he does an absolutely wonderful job of just playing against type, because usually whenever you see Mr. Danny DeVito in a role, he usually plays kind of like these very kind of, hard-edged, very kind of almost wise guy type characters, and to a certain extent he does play that with the Penguin, but at the same time there's almost a very darker, almost very sinister edge, kind of like a creepy old man kind of feel to him, how he plays it, like a little bit of a pervy guy. And you really do get that right from the off with Oswald's character when he's first introduced. But what's really great about this film is you really do get a sense of the atmosphere, you get a sense of the place that you're in, and it really just feels very homely. Like, I love, like, one day, one Friday night, I literally, came home from my school reunion. I went there on foot. Well, I didn't go there all the way on foot, but I went to the bus stop in my wheelchair, essentially, and in my electric wheelchair, because I'm disabled. And I went there in my electric wheelchair, and I had a good time at my school reunion, my old scholars. But then I came home and I felt very cold and it was very chilly out. So I thought, switch on the heating, get in my pajamas, make a cup of tea, and then just, sit down and watch, Batman Returns. And that's what I did. I actually, sat down and I thought, oh, I just feel like watching Batman Returns tonight. Like, because it was close to Christmas. It was literally December the 2nd. So you really do get the sense that, it felt like Christmas as soon as I put it on. It really felt very nice. So yeah, that's actually really nice. So to me, I really do like the way this film looks, and I like the fact that the characters really do have a lot of things to do in this film. Like, say for example, we're introduced to the character of Selena Kyle, and when we first meet her, she kind of feels as though she's kind of a little bit of a mousy character to if you'll pardon the irony. She's quite a mousy character. Like, she says things. She's meant to be the secretary who pours the coffee and says things like, "Oh, I have a suggestion." Well, actually, it was more like a question kind of thing. But she isn't just simply a very meek person. She has a personality. Like, as soon as the basic setup of the scene when we're introduced to her is she's basically there is board members who are basically talking about the new power plant, and Matt Shrek is basically putting on his showboating persona, who's played by the wonderful Christopher Walken. And he's putting on his showboat persona that he's basically saying, oh, we can do this, we'll do it this way, and that's how it's going to work, and it's going to be great, it's going to be fabulous, kind of doing his Donald Trump caricature kind of thing. And Silly Carl just goes, I have a suggestion. Well, maybe it's more of a question. And then Max just shoots her down by saying, oh, we haven't properly house trained Miss Kyle. Oh, but I'll tell you this, she makes one hell of a cup of coffee and things like that. And when they leave the room for Matt Shrek to greet his public, she basically has a reaction as if to say, oh, actually, it was more of a question. And then she goes, oh, you stupid corn dog, and things like that. So to me, I absolutely love Michelle Pfeiffer's version of Selena Kyle. She absolutely does this wonderful job of basically playing this character who could very easily just be written as a very kind of standard, meek, very kind of, not very confident, very kind of almost stumbles over her words a lot whenever she speaks. Like, actually, we should do this. That kind of feel. She doesn't give you that impression. She really is this character. Well, she does outside of meeting people. When she's meeting people, when she's interacting with people, when she's with herself, she has this incredible sense of self-awareness, and she has this incredible sense of she has a personality, and you really do get that she isn't happy with her situation, but she knows that she has to do it because where else can she go? And when she goes back to her apartment, she has this wonderful line where she goes, "Hi, honey, I'm home," and she goes, "Oh, I forgot, I'm not married," and things. And I absolutely just think that's amazing, and I think she's just one of those characters that you immediately warm to right away, and you really do get this impression that she is this person who really does have a lot to give, but she's just not being given a break. But she doesn't mope about it. She doesn't say, oh, I'm so pathetic, look at me, aren't I pathetic, kind of thing. She actually has a really good sense of humour about it. Like, there's this one scene where she's feeding the cat, this little black cat that comes into her house, she's feeding it milk, and she goes, when she hears it meow, she goes, what? How can someone be so pathetic? And she goes, well, gotta say, I am a working girl, gotta pay the rent, and things like that. So you can tell that she really does, kind of shrug it off and say, well, I'm in this situation, might as well grin and bear it, kind of thing. But she's a great character, and I think her performance, Michelle Pfeiffer's performance of this character, really is one of the things that really do make me say loudly and proudly, this is one of my favourite Batman films, because I really do think the way they treated Selena Kyle in this film was a really good, an interesting take on the character, and I'll go further into detail as we go deeper into the story. But Matt Shrek is basically giving a speech where he's giving out presents to the crowd, and he basically says, I'm Gotham's version of Santa Claus? I'm afraid not. I'm just a poor schmo who got lucky. I would love to give peace and unconditional love wrapped in a big bow. But alas, sue me if I want to give some back and things. And it's just, he's so full of shit, excuse my language, but he's so full of shit as a character, because you can really tell that he really doesn't give a damn about any of these people. He just wants to get good with the crowd so that he can get votes to become mayor. That's all he wants. So this little speech is interrupted by a gaggle of circus performers who are planning on just basically just ruining the entire set piece of the Christmas tree lighting and things like that. And Batman is immediately called onto the scene, where he does what he does best. He goes around in his Batmobile. He apprehends a few culprits. He beats the stuffing out of some people, but he mostly remains quite stoic, very cold. But he is actually in a very interesting place, because in the first Batman film, in the 1989 Batman film, Michael Keaton's Bruce, aka Batman, is quite simply socially awkward. He very much, doesn't know how to interact with people. He doesn't know how to, lead conversations. Sometimes he'll just shoot from the hip, or he'll just say what's on his mind right at that particular moment. Like, there's a scene where they, in the 1989 film, and one of the people says, "Oh, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a terracotta, samurai suit, or it's a sort of samurai suit from Japan." And he goes, "How do you know that?" And he goes, "Because I bought it in Japan." So you really do get this sense that he doesn't do the socialite game very well, and he is pretty much a loner in every respect. So, but you do really get a sense that he is trying to get over that, and he is actually trying to become a much more fleshed out person and more interesting, and as a result. But as Batman, he pretty much just is himself, and he just that's when he truly is himself, is when he's Batman. He really just is a front when he's Bruce, and that's something that I really like very much. But during the chaos, Matt Shrek wanders into an alleyway, and he falls through a trapdoor, which leads him into the sewer system of the Gotham Zoo, where he meets the Penguin, who basically says, "I want to find out where I come from. I want to get back to the surface, get back to my own people, and if you don't, I'm basically going to spill the beans that you were planning to poison the Gotham power plant with toxic waste, and that you killed your business partner, Fred, for trying to expose you." And he even has evidence, including a batch of the toxic waste from his sewer, from the power plant, and he also has Fred's severed hand, as well as a lot of Scotch tape and a little patience make all the difference type documentation that he's stitched together through all that time. And I absolutely just really think it's a fantastic set piece. I like the lines that he has in this particular section, where he basically says things like, tragic irony or poetic justice. He's basically talking about how he felt compelled to do to go into the sewers. He's basically assuming what his role was when he was basically thrown into the sewer. And he basically says to Matt Shrek, he asks him the question, tragic irony or poetic justice, you tell me, and things like that. So I really do think it's an incredible moment, because I really do think this is where Danny DeVito really shines as a character, because Danny DeVito really shines as an actor, because he basically plays a character who is very much the type of character he plays in a lot of these films, like, and he even goes on to play sorts of characters where he could have, he very much, likes to play these very business-like people, where he is very sleazy. He's very much all about the talk, the gift of the gab, the haggling type nature businessman. But he does it with such a very twisted, almost appearance with the Penguin, because that's essentially what he is. He basically is just a businessman and a smart business tycoon who basically, is quite deformed. And he really just adds a lot of charm and a lot of personality to the character, and there's almost a certain sense of tragedy to him because he wants to find out who his parents are, but he also wants to, just basically fit in again, and it really kind of gives that sense of he's a bit of an outsider, and he understands how he kind of just wants to be a part of people again, a part of civilization. There is a little bit of that, I think, because it's later revealed through Bruce that he knows who his parents are, and he's basically going to places like the Hall of Records to find out something else, but he just doesn't know what it is. But I think personally that a part of me likes to hope that the Penguin did want to know who his parents were, or wanted to at least go back to the surface so he could fit in with, the human population again, and feel human, because that's why he says the name, I have a name, Oswald Cobblepot, and things like that. So, he clearly does, care about care about the fact that he wants to fit in again, but it's obviously, also he's also a double agent and says he wants to, cause mischief. But it's such a great thing. But I really do think this film has a lot of wonderful moments like that. But continuing on the very same night that the carnival happened, the Circus of Mayhem happened in Gotham Square, Selina goes back to the office through an answering machine service. Just as she's about to get settled, she's taken her shoes off and she's getting ready to settle in when she hears on her answering machine that she left a message for herself to prepare the files for the Bruce Wayne meeting for Matt Trek in the morning. So she has to go back to the office, get her shoes back on, get her coat back on, and go back out. And I literally just felt like I can relate. Like, whenever you get the opportunity to, sit down and relax, and you remember you've got to do something, you've got to go out again to go and do something, I can relate to that incredibly well. So I really do think that was kind of a thing that always gets a tickle out of me whenever I hear that scene, that answer machine message. Maybe I need an answering machine just to remind me what I need to do in the mornings, instead of people coming in and telling me what to do, what I need to do, and things like that. So yeah, I really do get a little bit of a chuckle out of that scene every single time I hear that answering machine message. But while Selina's there at the office, she accidentally stumbles on the secret files about the power plant that Matt Trek had. So he basically says, what did curiosity do to the cat? And she goes, I'm no cat. And it looks as though he's about to kill her. And he goes, okay, he clearly isn't happy with the fact that she's found out this information. So she basically says, okay, then, go on, bully me if it makes you feel big. It's not as if you can just kill me. And then he goes, actually, it's not like that. And it actually gets really creepy, where you think, oh my god, is he actually going to kill her? But then, mood whiplash of all mood whiplash, he ends up, just basically going, huh? Like, joshing with her, hey. And she laughs nervously, like going, oh, you really frightened me. And then he just pushes her off out the window, and she says she dies, but I actually have a theory that suggests that she isn't dead. She's just a bit injured and a bit, insane. But I really do like this entire sequence, because the real interesting thing about this Catwoman is she isn't necessarily a good person. In every incarnation, she's not really a good person, but she's not a villain either. She is an antagonist for Batman, but she isn't necessarily a villain. But I think this one really brings it home, because she is a character who is very slowly going insane. And she literally is... The starting point is when she returns to her apartment and she repeats all the things she did a few hours ago. But except she's now, when she switches on a lamp, she knocks over the lamp and it falls to the floor. When she's, pouring out the milk, she pours some of it on the floor and it goes down a top as she starts to drink it. And when she hears, the answer machine messages, I couldn't help but think, is the messages actually something that's going on in her head, or is it actually something that she's actually hearing in real time, or is it something that's actually going on in her head? That was one of the things that I actually really was quite shocked with, because there are some of the things in those answering machine messages, like there's even an advertisement on the answering machine message that gives you a perfume that basically makes your boss want to take you to a candlelight staff meeting for 2 after hours, and it just kind of makes you think, oh, they're kind of implying sexual harassment there. And I'm wondering to myself, is that actually supposed to be an ad in the real world? Because if it is in the real world, as in the logic of the film world of the film, it kind of makes you think to yourself, oh, that's actually really twisted if that's the case. Like, that's actually really wrong. But if it's actually something that happened in her head, it's actually a really genius move, because it really kind of shows that she literally is starting to click that something bad's happened to her. And that's literally when she throws the milk at the answering machine and she just, goes crazy. This is one of my favorite, meltdown scenes I've probably ever seen, where this, coupled with the music and the sliding of the strings on the cello, it's just such a great hint at her cat-like persona as she's starting to become this Catwoman. And I love how in her costume there are literally these stitches, like these little stitch marks, these little stitch crosses in her mask, on her mask, and on her catsuit body. And I think that's something that really is interesting, because it literally shows that she's being revived, but I think it's literally showing that her sanity is on the brink, and she's literally trying to hold herself together. She's barely keeping herself together in her own mental state, and it literally reflects in her costume that she's literally going insane gradually as she engages in this persona, which is Catwoman, which is her going full insane. And I just really loved those details, and I really liked how Michelle Pfeiffer added a distinction between these two characters, but they're very much the same, because to me, she's always had this persona in her. It just took her to be woken up, as it were, through her being pushed out the window, that made her realize that this is not who she is. She is someone who's much more, she's much more, full on, and she's much more, keen on getting in, payback where it's due, and being very direct instead of, very evasive. And I think that's something that really is quite fantastic about her performance. And it really does add a lot of depth. And I really do think a lot of people, when people say that people have said that this is kind of their worst Batman film, or people say that, oh, it's a bad movie, I think the entire thing with Selena Kyle saves it to a certain degree. The stuff with Selena Kyle and Batman definitely are an interesting dynamic, and I do think, yeah, it does have its problems, this film, and it does have its very cartoony elements to it, but that's Tim Burton. Tim Burton always operates in a very cartoony logic kind of way, so you really kind of have to expect it whenever you're watching a Tim Burton film to always go into the cartoony territory, because that's what he does, that's his style, and people need to accept it. I mean, people do it with Rob Zombie and other filmmakers, so I feel like, they should do the same thing with Tim Burton, so yeah. But this entire movie is fantastic. The stuff when Selena Kyle comes back to the office and she meets Bruce fully, and they actually engage in a relationship, I think that's where the film really shines, and they really just have some of the great scenes in the film. The line, mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it, but a kiss can even be even deadlier if you mean it. Excuse me. Yeah, the line, mistletoe could be deadly if you eat it, but a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it, is such a great line. I mean, I absolutely love it. But it really kind of shows how they're kind of the same mind, and they are kind of almost very similar, but they're polar opposites, but they're also very similar to each other in the sense that they're both some degree of insane, but at the same time they also operate under this very kind of warped logic that what they're doing is justified. And that's a very interesting, almost slightly twisted approach on the Batman idea, which is the idea that, Bruce Wayne has effectively snapped when he basically lost his parents, and he's basically invented this persona of dressing up like a bat and personifying the fear that, he will hope to bring to others through his fear of bats. That literally is the logic of an insane person, someone who's literally, literally, gone off the deep end and, struggling to keep their head above water. But Bruce can manage his sanity, whereas Selena can't. And what I really love, which a lot of films don't do nowadays, which is they kind of often portray man and woman dynamics as, the woman has to maintain strength and not show vulnerability, and the man has to be kind of like, the weakness, and she has to be the one saving him. But in a way, Selena is the one who, she's not being saved by Bruce, but he's kind of keeping her above water when she starts to go insane. And I like the fact that she is allowed to be vulnerable. She is allowed to be scared. She's allowed to be, because there's a scene where they're at the masquerade ball. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about this movie as well. It made me a Susie and the Banshees fan in the same way that the film The Crow made me both a fan of Brandon Lee and The Cure. So I really do owe a lot to this film for making me a Susie and the Banshees fan as well. So to me, I absolutely love this film entirely, but I absolutely love the masquerade ball scene because it shows that Selena Kyle is vulnerable. There is a little bit of that old Selena in there where she pulls out a gun and she says, how does this look, or how does this feel for making a statement? And Bruce goes, I know you have some issues between you and your boss, but who do you think you are? And she just starts laughing, and she just goes, she starts to cry. You can see the tears welling in her eyes. She goes, I don't know anymore, Bruce. And that's something that really kind of breaks your heart, because you know that she's trying to hold it together. And Bruce is trying to keep her on the surface. She's trying to keep it. He's trying to keep her from going off the deep end and drowning, essentially, because that's what happens when you when you kind of go insane. You feel like you're drowning, or you're losing a part of yourself along the way. But Bruce is quite happily trying to keep it together, and that dynamic is one of the things that saves the film for me, and makes me think, it's one of my favorite Batman films, because it really does show that it isn't just a romantic story. It's a story about, these two people who are very similar helping each other. They just happen to be of a different gender, and I think that of two opposing genders, and I think that's something that really is quite, well written, in my opinion, and I think that's very well done. And I like the fact that that she doesn't get redeemed, but she does, get closure in her own twisted and warped way. And like I said, she really goes off the deep end when she gets shot by Matt Schreck at the very end of the film, and she literally is saying things like 2, 4, 6, 7, all little girls go to heaven, and she literally, is so off the deep end, but she really just kind of embraces it at this point, because she knows that she's here and she wants to carry this out. She wants to kill Matt Schreck, but she knows that, in doing so, she will go completely her own way, and she won't be able to connect with Bruce anymore. They might do for the future, but who knows? We never really got an answer to that, because a sequel to Tim Burton's Batman Returns was cancelled afterwards. And I think personally, she says something really wonderful in the final moments of this particular film. And I know I'm kind of dropping Penguin, but I really do think this relationship between the Batman and Catwoman are one of the things that I absolutely love about this film, because they really do a very good job of really kind of fleshing out their relationship. And they aren't just opposites, mischievous antagonist and the hero. They are literally, very similar in the sense that they're basically using these personas to exorcise the issues that they have. From a very psychological perspective, it is very interesting. So I do think that there are elements of that I really do think are worth mentioning in this film. So if you happen to watch this film, or if you happen to see this film pop up on your listings on Sky or Freeview or whatever, and you literally find yourself asking, oh, I remember that film, I remember it not being very good, but then you watch this and you think to yourself, oh, I might give this another watch, because there's actually some interesting things here. I hope this video kind of inspires that from people, because I do think it is it is a much better film than a lot of people give it credit for, and I do think that people should give it at least a second look and say, well, oh, there is actually something to this dynamic. Not everything in this film is is completely, flawlessly good, but I do think it, in terms of the relationship between Selena Kyle and Bruce, it really did a very good job of kind of contextualizing all their trauma, essentially, and it's very well done. And I do have to give praise to both Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer, particularly Michelle Pfeiffer, because she literally has to go above and beyond to really kind of show how Selena Kyle can go through the motions, and how she can become this person who is very sadistic, but also she's very much damaged, but she is using her trauma, she's using this dark stuff that's happened to her as a way of kind of dealing with, using her persona to deal with her trauma, but she's also using her trauma and her darkness to kind of get what she wants, which is revenge on Matt Schreck. Bruce is trying to use his vengeance for his perceived vengeance to avenge his parents' death as a way of kind of becoming a symbol for good and a symbol for hope for people, whereas Oswald is using his appearance as a way of getting into people's skins and trying to, manipulate the system so that it works in his favour, pretty much in the same way that, Matt Schreck is doing, but except like, Oswald said, you're just jealous that I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask. That he's actually embracing his difference, but he's using it in a very warped and very twisted way. So Oswald and Catwoman team up, and they try to hijack and hack into the Batmobile. But this creates a very humorous sequence where he's pretending to ride one of those kiddie car things where you put money into them and it plays music and it bobs up and down thing in his trailer, and he's having fun with that, but then Batman dislodges it and gets free and escapes the police. This entire sequence does bring out one of my favourite out of context lines, though, where there's this princess, a character who's called the Princess, who gets kidnapped by Oswald, and she's kind of characterized as this dumb blonde character, and she kind of basically gets held hostage, and through a tussle with Catwoman and Batman, she ends up ending up on the roof, and Oswald throws down an umbrella that's shut, but then it opens and it reveals the swarm of bats, and they surround the princess, and she basically falls off the ledge, and one of the people in the crowd, as they're looking up, goes, "Hey, Batman pushed the princess." And I literally laugh every single time. That's probably my favourite, out of context lines ever. And imagine if you heard that in the React channel's guess the film by just a sound game that they play, where they basically give you 1 second of sound and or 2 seconds, and they basically play that line. Imagine what their reactions would be like. What the fuck? When did Batman push a princess? This kind of thing. And then it leads to a wonderful image, which I always kind of, get a little bit of a chill of happiness seeing, which is bats surrounding a Christmas tree, coming out of a Christmas tree and surrounding it. I just love that. It's just so good. Oh, it's so good. I love this film. But yeah, Oswald wants to basically win an election to be mayor. But when he actually is hijacking Batman's Batmobile, he ends up saying, I'll deal with the wretched squinhead, pin-headed sheep of Gotham. And Batman records it, and he plays it out to the crowd of Gotham when, he's making his speech, the Penguin's making his speech, and he is forced to retreat back into the sewers. And there's this one line that he says when people start throwing lettuce and tomatoes at him. They'll say, why is there always someone who brings lettuce and tomatoes to a speech? And this film is so quotable. I love it. It's such a great film. But then when he returns to the sewer, he ends up, revealing that he was actually in the Hall of Records, not to look up his roots, but as I said before, Batman has investigated it and he's kind of on the money a little bit. He has an ulterior motive with being in the Hall of Records, and that's to get the first and last names of every firstborn son of the upper class in Gotham, and basically lead them into the sewers and into a deep, dark, watery grave. So through this entire escapade, which involves penguins going out into Gotham in their most adorable fashion, waddling through Gotham Square with little cannons and little missiles attached to their backs. It's goofy as hell, but I love it because it's so adorable, but it's so cheesy as well. And Batman almost gets missiled down by a bunch of penguins. And I love he's sort of in this tunnel thing, and these penguins literally shoot up out of the water and they fire at his bat plane, and he literally swerves at the last minute and he misses the missiles. And Michael Keaton as Batman literally has this look on his face as if, for God's sake, I was only about to die by penguins firing missiles. It's glorious. I love this film. I cannot stress how much I love this film. It's so good. But there's so many good moments. And then Batman and the Penguin have a little bit of a tussle, and that leads to Batman holding the detonator, which leads to him using the penguins against him to launch the missiles into the zoo. But through a mishap and through him using the same umbrella trick that the Penguin used on the princess at that certain point of the film, a swarm of bats comes out of Penguin's umbrella and swarms Oswald, and he falls down a window shaft into the sewer, and he doesn't appear until after Selina and Matt Shrek disappear or vanish or die. And this entire sequence is very weird because at the same time it is very goofy, but I don't know whether it's Danny Elfman's music or just the image of seeing these penguins waddle out and basically, and they're men in penguin suits. It should be the most goofiest thing in the world. But I don't know why, but whenever I hear Danny Elfman's music, it always kind of gives me that feeling that I always get a lump in my throat for some bizarre reason. Like, I always think, why am I crying? This is because of he's a penguin, he's a Batman villain. Why am I crying? Why do I get emotional? Why do I get dry-throated over, or a lump in my throat over the penguin getting buried at sea? But it's Danny Elfman's music. There's a magic to it, and I think that's something that really is quite wonderful. That's why I was absolutely in my element when I heard the theme for the Wednesday TV series, because I absolutely just loved it. I felt like, yeah, Danny Elfman's back, composing these great scores, and I absolutely just think it's fantastic. And this score is no different. I mean, I absolutely love this score, and I love Tim Burton's direction. I love the writing. I think everything about this film is just fantastic. So when you get the chance sometime this Christmas, please give this film a watch, because I do feel like it's one of those films that I think a lot of people do need to see and do need to enjoy, because it is a good film. It is a fun, campy, Batman film set during Christmas time, but it also has a lot of stuff that a lot of people who are probably fans of the Christopher Nolan or the Rob Pattinson Batman films will definitely appreciate, and really do kind of think, there is actually something to this film that's actually much more interesting. So yeah, I definitely will give this my highest recommendation. I do hope people watch it, and I will be doing more Christmas themed reviews on Christmas films. I want to do a review for It's a Wonderful Life, because I do feel like that's going to be my next big review for the Christmas period. I'm going to be doing other Christmas films, so in the comments, will you leave me, a message saying, you guys out there, a message saying, what Christmas film would you like me to review next? What would you like me to look at next? I'll have, all sorts of different ideas about which ones I want to do. I definitely want to do A Nightmare Before Christmas, another Tim Burton film, and Krampus. But I'll have other Christmas films in mind. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What Christmas films would you like me to? You guys like me to review in the comments. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this particular video. And what did you think of the film overall? If you saw it for the first time, or if you've seen it ever, what did you think? What was your first impressions of the film? And that's all I'm going to say for now. And this has been Josh with Whimsical Interesting Musings. And have a very good day. Bye bye for now.